Hi there everyone, this is Adamantium here again. I know it will be kind of strange seeing the title of this video, considering my previous police encounters. However, this time the police have actually succeeded, through dishonesty in my opinion, as I'll detail in a minute. Basically, yeah, I experienced my first arrest due to my activism. Basically, yesterday was the 22nd of September 2012, and normal Saturday afternoon, normal hugger-phoning setup. I was doing it for about 2 hours. When I got arrested, I was just before I got arrested, I was giving out my 37th hug of the day, and basically the police approached me. I didn't know whether they were approaching me in their official capacity or just coming to say hi, because they seemed quite friendly when they first came up. I said, hi, how's it going, guys? Then they started talking to me, and just like a couple of words in, I realised that they were speaking to me in their official capacity. So I'm like, right, had my camcorder on my shoulder, started lifting it up and switching it on, and as I was doing that, I was just saying, just to let you know, guys, I will be videotaping this for my own protection. I just managed to switch it on, and then they lunged forward with the cuffs, saying that I was being arrested. Now, naturally, I was backing away, going, wait a minute, guys, let's have a dialogue here. But no, grabbing my megaphone off me, putting my hands behind my back, and slapping the cuffs on me. Now, this, I feel, is actually causes 6 separate breaches of pace, because basically, they basically put the cuffs on me, saying, yeah, you're arrested, la 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 la, and then like, taking me away to the car. Then basically I'll instead of just being incoherent and reeling this off from memory, I'll write down, because when I was put in the cell, I asked for some access to some a pen and a paper. So I'll basically read out what was written. This was before I heard the supposed evidence against me, so this will be a little bit incomplete. Okay, hugger-phoning for about 2 hours. I had just finished giving a hug and thus not using the megaphone. As police approached, as I got my camera out, they advanced with the cuffs and forced them onto me. For all I know, they might not have been real police officers. I repeated several times that I did not consent to the arrest, but they took no notice. The arrest was unlawful, as there were 6 separate breaches of pace, in my opinion. They put me in the back of the car and took me to the station. They searched me at the station against my wishes and without my consent. The attitude from the officers, particularly the custody officer, was rather condescending when I wasn't going by their script, because basically I was maintaining my own rights. I was asking, am I obliged to answer your questions? And they were getting rather condescending and using a lot of logical fallacies. At no point did I consent to or grant joinder, and I did not consent to fingerprints. Even though at the station they said, if you don't give us your details, we're going to take your fingerprints by force. Right? That was what the custody officer said. Guess what? They didn't even take my prints. Even though I asked for pace during the unconsented search, I wasn't actually given a copy until 1 hour after I was in the cell, and even then I had to ask for it. I was only told of what I was accused of when I was put in the back of the car. Basically, I'm going, as I was writing this, I was going back and forth, like filling in the different details. As the officers began to talk to me, this is back at the beginning, just before the arrest. As the officers began to talk to me, they appeared friendly. However, when I informed them I would be videotaping the conversation and thus started to switch my camcorder on, that is when the cuffs came out and they began the forced arrest. I repeatedly notified the officers that they are obliged to know I do not consent to their purported authority, to which they absent-mindedly brushed it off. They did not have my consent to touch me, but they did anyway, violating my right to physical dignity. These officers swore an oath to uphold my rights as well as anyone else. They did not do this, as they swiftly removed me from the area by means of force which was completely unnecessary. I would have been willing to come quietly. However, it appears the officers seem to require to make an example out of me by using aggressive, threatening posturing, unnecessary force, and a belligerent and ignorant attitude towards my physical dignity and my human rights. Please keep in mind that I'm aware of the constraints of Section 5. A successful communicator acknowledges that in order to convey information properly, a respectful and open manner must be utilized. I am a firm believer in that, which is why I am always civil, respectful, receptive, and open to having my information challenged so we can all learn, evolve, and grow. Such is the process of education. Now, some information is hard to take in. For example, the news of the death of a loved one. However, it is still important information. Some of the insights I have, as challenging and offensive as they may be received, are still valuable insights. Historically, we have always fought against transforming information, even if the simple absorbing of that data improves our understanding of the world we live in. But because we are groomed into values that encourage an emotional attachment to dogmatic views, the reaction to emergence has always been, "I am offended." I have not done anything wrong. All I have done is exercise my human right to freedom of expression as per Article 10 of the Human Rights Act. The officers told me about 5 phone calls they received in complaint of me. However, for all I know, they could have made this up to give excuse to arrest me. And at that point I wrote, I require the officers' names and numbers in addition to the CAD numbers of the alleged complaints. Neither of these I got. I just got the name of the arresting officer, which was PC Jackson. I'm assuming these alleged complaints were down to what I have said on the megaphone or the sticker on the side. However, I am protected by Article 10 of the Human Rights Act. No one has a right to be offended. Offence is a subjective choice. Such is not a firm basis for law. What do we have freedom of expression for, if anyone can ring up the police claiming to be offended? Is that true freedom of expression? Now, if we're talking me having done something wrong because someone took offence, then we need to reconsider whether we really have freedom. There's that bit, and also in terms of a historical precedent for someone being publicly shamed, imprisoned and forced to admit wrongdoing for merely expressing information, then we needn't look any further than Galileo Galilei. Have we not learned as a culture that while some information may be difficult for some to accept, that we still have the freedom to express it? Where, I ask you, is the statute or law that states we have the right to shroud resistance against information with offence? I am always respectful, and while broaching hard-hitting subject matter, I tend to use humour. If anything, I am guilty of being a poor comedian. I am not a criminal. The alleged complaints, as I heard them being detailed while I was being searched, were taken grossly out of context, and the specifics of which I will go into in a bit, and it goes more than that. Just because the human brain is imperfect and thus cannot resist the urge to fall victim to logical fallacies, i.e. shouting on a megaphone, when the very use of a megaphone nullifies the need to shout, doesn't mean that any arrest has any lawful basis. I have done nothing wrong. Now, just before I go into detailing the specifics of when I was taken to the police station, I'll read out what I feel is the 6 parts of pace that the police officers breached when they arrested me. As far as I'm aware, 1.3 in the introduction was breached. The arrest was unlawful due to the 2 elements not being present. Arrest was not necessary, since I actually prefer talking these issues through, and if necessary, accompanying the officers to the station. I feel that 2.2 was breached. I wasn't informed of what I was supposed to have done until I was in the back of the car. I feel 2.5 was breached. None of the necessary criteria were present. I was activating my camcorder to record the encounter and notifying the officers of this. This is not a necessary criteria to engage an arrest. I feel 3.4 was breached. It was practicable to issue a caution against me, since I wanted a dialogue. I was only given a caution in the car as an afterthought. And in the notes for guidance of the introduction to PACE, I feel number 2 was breached. There was no objective grounds for suspicion, only the officer's claim of subjective offence on behalf of 5 alleged individuals. And number 3 I feel was breached because I was not informed why the arrest was considered necessary. Now, I'll go into the specifics of these accusations in a minute, because you will, for those of you who know my work, you will find them very interesting. Now, basically, that was the arrest. Cuffs were put on me quite violently. I feel actually I've still got a bit of a red mark around my wrist. Obviously, it's faded now into nothing because they do try and put the cuffs on you as hard as they can, but not to cause lasting physical damage. Even though apparently in the arrest log, or however it's called, the reddening of my wrist was noted down apparently. But no, they put me in the back of the car, and I was just repeating over and over, I do not consent to this arrest. This is an unlawful arrest. And they were just brushing everything off. They thought that legal and lawful were the one and the same thing. Yeah. Even though PC Jackson did demonstrate, quite a keen knowledge of different statutes, for some reason he thought the arrest was lawful. But then again, at the time, they were privy to information that I wasn't privy to at the time, which would possibly make the arrest lawful in their eyes, because of information they believed to be true, which wasn't actually true. But we'll get into that in a minute. Basically, got to the police station. I had to be searched. I wasn't strip searched or anything like that, but I had to take everything out of my pockets, and I had to do that. And one of the things that stumped PC Jackson is when I said to him, so basically you're saying that we don't have freedom of expression anymore because anyone can ring up and complain. And so what if I found the shop front of a jeweller's incredibly materialistic and offensive in terms of the waste of our finite planetary resources, and I called up to the police to complain? Would you take the proprietor of that shop to prison? And that particularly stumped him, because that's the thing. What I found here is that this wasn't a case of upholding human rights, and in particular freedom of expression. It was about protection of business, but we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, they basically searched me without my consent. I notified the officers several times before, during and after that I did not consent to the search. I even looked directly at one of the CCTV cameras in the prison. I said I do not consent to this search. But yeah, after that, I was then taken in front of the custody officer at the front desk, who was being, as I detailed, he was being very condescending, because he just assumed that that they were bringing in a very naughty boy who was being difficult, when in fact, they don't realise that that they're actually playing games of gaining jurisdiction, where they're asking questions. And I asked, right, check this out. I asked him, "Am I obliged to answer your questions?" And he said, "It's fine if you don't want to. You don't have to." But like in regards of my details, he said, "You don't have to give me your details, but if you don't, we will get your fingerprints by force." And I tried to rationalise with him. I tried to say, well, if you've confirmed that I don't have to do something, and if I choose not to do it, which you've confirmed that I don't have to do, then how does that legitimise force on your part? And he had no answer for that. He had no answer. He just kept moving on and just like inferring that I was just being difficult, and that I was just being a naughty little child, which I find quite condescending. Like he was just asking me these questions, and and one of the things he said is that basically if I give him my details, then I'll go home much quicker. And he made a joke saying, "Well, it's all right, I'm going home tonight," as though to sort of like guilt trip me into giving him my details, to feel that because he's going home when he's supposed to go home, that means that because I'm actually standing up for my rights, then I won't go home, sort of thing. That was a very condescending sort of like comment. But I particularly liked it when he asked me, where were you born? And I said, the planet Earth. Because I wasn't conscious at the time, so how can I put my hand on my heart and say exactly where I was born? I wasn't conscious at the time, so everything else is hearsay. But yeah, that's one thing that I've found the police do. They treat you like a belligerent, difficult child if you are asserting your rights and not following along with their script. But yeah, after that, I was basically taken to my cell. I had to take my shoes off, just in case if I choose to take the laces off and hang myself, even though there is nothing in the cell that you can hang yourself from. Unless you manage to scale up the wall and I don't know, like knock out one of the glass blocks and then hang yourself from like one of the no, it's just a dehumanizing thing. The cell I was in was probably about maybe 8 foot by 8 foot, with a small little alcove with a toilet in. Well, I say a toilet, it was really just a bowl with 2 buttons. I didn't read what it said. I presume one of them is flush and the other one is B-day, because there wasn't any bog roll. But then again, it might not have been. Another dehumanizing thing: we won't provide you with any bog roll or facilities to clean your asshole. But yeah, that was just a little alcove in there, and it was interesting to look at the wall. It had the walls of an English police station prison cell. I don't know whether they're like this in other jurisdictions, but the walls had a sort of like that sort of like rough paintwork feel, kind of like not wood chip, but that really rough sort of like feel that's created by just a very sort of like with a paintbrush, and it's just very, very rough. That was all white, and then also little tiny specks of dark blue and dark red in there as well, as though someone just like, I don't know, had a roller with like red paint on it and just spun it and just like targeted it at the walls, so it just like splattered whole size of the walls with like tiny specks of paint, both red and blue. That was interesting. And and in big black stenciled letters. I mean, you could tell they were stenciled. You know the sort of like what's it called? Prisoner in Cell Block H or something. That you know the kind of font that's used for the title of that series. It was that in black on the walls, saying something like, cells are monitored by CCTV. Any damage to the cells, you will be charged, and all that sort of stuff. And then in smaller black, still stenciled letters, something something to the effect of, "Do you have a drug problem?" And it was kind of like an advertisement for a service on the side of the wall, which was interesting. But yeah, I basically spent in total about 7 hours in that cell. Altogether at the police station, I spent about 8 hours because I was arrested at around about 2 p.m. I can't be entirely sure, but it was around about 2 p.m. and I emerged from the police station about 10:30. So taking into consideration the search, the consultation with the free legal advice that I asked for, and the interview itself, it was about 8 hours, 8.5 hours in total. So about 7 hours in the cell, in which I basically spent to write all this out. It was a bit of a traumatic thing to be in a cell, because it was the first time that I've actually been in I mean, the last time I was in a police cell, I was probably about 8 or 9, and I was going round a tour of the police station with the Cub Scouts. And that was just sort of like, come on kids, let's go see what the cell's like, and then like the officers like standing at the open doorway, and it's like, this is where we put the bad men, and but no, it was the first time I've been put in a cell and the door slammed and locked. That was the first time, and even though I was only in there for 7 hours, I was glad to be out. Really, I actually. It actually made me realise how despotic and how awful a real prison environment is. I mean, I felt really uncomfortable only being in there for 7 hours. I don't know what it's like for someone who spends 7 years in a cell like that. I mean, with that in mind, I mean, I know this might seem a bit inflammatory to some people, but I have a newfound sort of admiration for the integrity of someone who can spend years in a cell and come out not completely doolally. Because I can extrapolate that experience that I had, even though it was only 7 hours. I don't know jack about prison, and what it's actually like in prison, but from those 7 hours I can at least try and extrapolate out into weeks, days, weeks, months and years. It just adds more conviction to my view that prison does not heal anyone. How can you put someone in a cell like that for years and expect them to come out as a good individual? You can't. You simply can't. Yeah, but that's that. Essentially, I'd asked for some legal representation, which I got. He advised me that I mean, I didn't get the impression that he wanted to hear out all of my objections against it. I think he just wanted to like get this over and done with, sort of thing. I mean, no disrespect, dude, but you're a bit too efficient, and you didn't. I mean, I was trying my best to try and explain these objections with what I feel was their breaches of pace with them, and I didn't even get through all of them because he didn't really want to hear it. from what I feel. But essentially, that was that. I basically waited about 7 hours for that to arrive. Had a quick consultation with my that legal advice, and he basically advised me to answer all their questions. But essentially paraphrased the police caution, because basically, if the whole idea of the caution is that you have the right to remain silent, but and you have the right to remain silent when questioned as well. However, if it were to go to court and you remain silent during certain questions, if they were to ask you the same questions in court, then and you had an answer for them, then how would that would either look quite good or quite bad, because it might appear that you've had time to reflect on the question and come up with a good answer, or that you didn't want to answer it at the time and then you're just generating a response. I mean, I can understand that, but okay, now we're going to get into the real meat and potatoes of it, because this is the this was revealed to me in both in my consultation with the free legal advice that I received. Only a couple of these, but they were mostly revealed to me during the interview. The specific statements that were made about me. Now, these were apparently statements that were given to the police by members of the public, in particular the workers of the jewellers that are at the top of Fremlin Walk. Okay, for those of you who are familiar with my worldview and the kind of things I say on the megaphone, then you will find this interesting. Apparently, one of the things that I said was that, and I quote, Osama bin Laden was just doing a job. That's apparently one of the things I've said on a megaphone. Sorry. Bullshit. Another thing that actually got me quite angry. I was sort of like, my voice was trembling with anger at the very implication that I would say something like this on a megaphone. Apparently, according to one of the I don't know whether it was a member of the public or one of the workers of the jewellers or whatever, but apparently one of the things I said on the megaphone is that if you have cancer, then you deserve it, and there's no point in waiting for treatment. You might as well wait to die. You deserve to die, and it's because you've done something wrong in your life. That is apparently what I've said on a megaphone. Now, does that sound like my rhetoric? Someone who's a peaceful activist who tries to tell people that they are beautiful just as they are, and that they don't need money or material possessions to make them happy? Does that hateful, spiteful rhetoric sound like it comes from me, or does it sound like it comes from someone who just is sick and tired of me megaphoning near them, and they want to make shit up to get rid of me? Because here's one thing that these people didn't fucking count on. I'm a cancer survivor myself. What sense does it make for me to say something like that? It doesn't. It really doesn't. So you're saying that I'm saying that I deserve to die, and that I've done something wrong in my life, and everyone else around me. Sorry, I call bullshit. And you know what? The police were lapping this up. They were lapping it up, and it gets better, because I mean, and one of the statements was, because this is interesting, because apparently these were all the statements I made yesterday, being the 22nd, right? All these statements were supposedly from one day, right? From 2 hours worth of megaphoning, right? Here's one of the things that I apparently said, and I would concede that I have said it, but not that day. one of the things that I said, obviously parodying the mainstream media, you never know, when you look around, anyone around you could be a terrorist. Now,